Like many people and organisations around this country right now, we are all suffering from grief, and particularly grief related to loss. We've all lost something. So, in our youth theatre, for example, we were due to start a tour of a show called Relentless with our ensemble company last Saturday, so yesterday. And we had to cancel it inevitably. The theatres have closed, it wasn't safe, we wouldn't have been able to take it out, and it wasn't the right thing to do. But especially with something like that, there was a big build up to getting that ready, everybody preparing, everyone being excited, a lot of natural and kind of positive nerves around that as well. And then the whole thing got ripped away, and really, really quickly. And as a result, there was a real feeling of grief and of loss. And again, like I say, people around the country are going to be feeling things like that, whether that's cancelled professional events, things that they were involved with, things that they've been putting a hell of a lot of work into, or whether that's something that was more personal. So, a family celebration, for example, a holiday, something like that, that actually you've been really holding out for, that has now been taken away. And it's completely outside of your control as well. So, to help us all manage these feelings that we're going through, I'd like to use a psychological model, and that is the 7 stages of grief. Stage 1 is shock. That is when this first hits us, the reality of what is going on, what has happened, and I think we're all going through that at the moment. It's important to remember that these stages don't happen in a linear fashion. It's not one after the other, after the other, after the other. We can dip in and out of every single one of them. We can go back to one we've already been in that we thought we'd left, and so on and so on. Emotions aren't nice and tidy and linear. So expect this process to be messy, but it can be really useful to recognize each of these stages, because that gives you more cognitive control over it. Rather than just letting these things happen to you, you can start thinking about it and do things that are going to help you process it. Stage 2 is denial, trying to avoid the inevitable. People behaving as though this isn't actually happening, or that somehow it's not going to affect them, that either they're immune or they're just going to stay at a distance from it. And that's a really natural reaction to what's happening. But another really important association with this stage of the grieving process is that we start to lose hope. It all seems very pointless. We start to feel very demotivated, and start to wonder whether the world is ever going to be the same again, and how we fathom out our way in a whole new reality. And if you're feeling anything like that, I certainly have been. All of last week, I felt very, very motivated. I was working hard. I had lots to do. And then I took a day off, which I really needed to rest yesterday. And actually, I felt my energy levels just plummet. And I found it quite hard to get going again, and to just it feeling really quite overwhelmed, and how do we do this, and how are we going to do this, and what does it all mean? And that's a natural part of the grieving process. Stage 3 is anger. And I'm going to encourage you to feel that anger, because the more that you allow yourself to feel it, the quicker that it will dissipate. We were having a chat in our team last week about a brilliant scene in Sex Education, which is a show on Netflix, where they go to an old scrapyard and they have baseball bats and golf clubs, and they smash stuff to make themselves feel better. Now, while I'm not advocating going out there and smashing stuff, if you can find a way to process that anger, to let it out, whether that's having a good rant with somebody that allows you to do that, whether it's about getting that out physically through exercise, whether that's about just shouting into a pillow. I know all of this seems a bit ridiculous, but it will help. It'll help you process those feelings and allow yourself to move past them. Stage 4 is bargaining, trying desperately to find a way out, trying to find a way to negotiate with the universe so that this actually isn't happening. I can definitely see that happening in our world, where we're trying to think of how can we keep working, or I'm definitely going to be able to just keep doing my 9 to 5 job in my 9 to 5 way, and the fact that I'm working at home with somebody else who's also trying to do a full-time job, and we have a child to look after, and now they're not at school, that's all going to be fine. That will just carry on as normal. You can see the links back to denial with that one as well, can't you? Stage 5 is depression. Now, I don't think that one's quite hit me yet, but I know it's coming. I'm trying to keep proactive. I'm trying to be optimistic and trying to think about actually how can this new change of life that we've all had to deal with be a positive thing, and try and stay positive for others. But I think there'll come a point actually where it hits me like a ton of bricks, actually, all of the things that we've lost. All of the things that are going to be different, and that's going to be quite an emotional downer, but I'm prepared for it. So I know it's coming, and I also know ways to look after myself in that, things that make me feel better, and that's not just gin and tonic. Stage 6 is testing. And this is trying to proactively find solutions to the problems that we find ourselves in. Now, I know that myself and the Mortalfalls team spent the majority of last week doing just that, whilst also dipping back and forth into shock, into depression for some of the team, into anger. So we were moving around through the different stages of grief, but we keep coming back to this testing phase where we're going, okay, well, what possibilities does this now present itself? How is this new way of life going to work? And how can we be as positive as we can in this? And stage 7, which is the last stage, but remember, these aren't linear. And the last stage is acceptance. Now, that's a really tricky one, but we will all get there. There'll come a point where actually this new normal will have established itself for the meantime. We'll have some clear rules in place. We'll know how life has to function and how the things that we all love and care about fit into that. But it will take some time and some figuring out and some going back over some of these other different stages in order to get there. So give yourselves time, look after yourselves, look after those people around you, and I hope you found this video helpful.